So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Good evening, folks, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast with myself and Paddy. And we do have some stranger danger in the podcast today. We have the reason I've called this friendly fire is because the wonderful Matt Hayes from the Matt Hayes Tottenham blog is on with us tonight. Matt's a good friend of the show, and we're not going to bring him on and slate him or anything like that. So because of that reason, we've called it friendly fire, because we want to see what the feeling is in the Spurs camp at the moment. I know we've had Matt on previous on the podcast, and he wasn't as optimistic, I think, about Tottenham's fortunes and favours over the course of the season. But I can only assume that's changed since. But we'll get on to you in a moment, Matt. I need to know what Paddy's got inside his cup first, and how he's feeling today.
Nah, nothing too exciting. Just a cup of tea. I'll have to tilt it just to prove there's no beer in there.
Yeah,
I'm good, Neil. I'm just in from kicking some young fellas around the pitch and feeling good about myself. So just thankful I can still do it.
Yeah, I very nearly. I threatened to go playing again football tonight. Go play again a 7-side, but yeah, I think I can only get away with the child is too young for so long. I think it's coming close to its end now at this stage. So I might have to dust off the boots and get back playing again. I think my waistline will thank me for it anyway, if nothing else. But yeah, so we're here for a Spurs preview. There's quite a lot going on in the world of football at the moment, so thanks to everybody for tuning in here. I know that Chelsea are having a torrid time of it against Real Madrid, and also Mr. Lampard isn't exactly going to be too delighted. And we're actually going to start off and talk about those, I suppose, realistically about Burnley and Everton, more or less in the context of Aston Villa, Paddy, just for the first maybe minute or so. I didn't expect Burnley to pull that result out for a 3-2. I thought it was a 2-2 all day long. And even with Everton getting 2 penalties, they didn't look like they were up to much cough, did they, against Burnley at Turf Moor?
Well, I didn't see too much of it, to be honest, but I'd worry for Everton now, given the fact that we still have to play Burnley twice. So it's a guaranteed 6 points for Burnley. Look, they've obviously shown a bit of fight tonight, because, you would expect a bit of fight out of Everton, but it hasn't worked out that way. Matt, you've been watching that one, have you?
Yeah, it was a really interesting game of football, because Burnley they came out the blocks very early on, and they're playing quite well. They're causing problems, and it was typical Everton defending from a set piece that allowed Burnley to take the lead. But once Everton got that first penalty, they came back into the game and really quietened Burnley's cough and went on and got that second penalty. But I think as much as Everton's equaliser changed the game in their favour, I think that equaliser for Burnley in the second half switched it the other way. And Burnley, I think, were good value for that victory in the end.
It's an interesting one, though, because I think everybody's been just waiting for Everton to just kick into gear and put away from safety, put away from the danger zone. And when's it going to happen? That's not exactly a cheaply assembled squad. Now, you look at their back four. Back four aren't great. I don't personally rate Mason Holgate. I know Aston Villa fans don't personally rate Mason Holgate, specifically after Jed Steer stared him down. That time it was Mason Holgate that he stared down, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was, yeah.
And unfortunately, obviously they've got Seamus Coleman there, and you can see that Seamus Coleman is the weight of the world on his shoulders at the moment, and he's not getting any younger. And it pains me as much to say as an Irish football fan that he's coming to the end of the road after maybe that last injury and so on might have taken the last year or two of his career away from him. But I've got Michael Keane there as well, who's not having the greatest season either, and you just kind of you're really kind of wondering what's going to happen for them. Are they going to draw their way to safety? They're on they've played 29 games, the same as Burnley now. Burnley had a ton of games in hand at one stage, and they seem to have done something with it, because now Burnley are just behind 1 point behind Everton at the moment, and Everton are 3 or 4 points, I think, behind 4 points, I think, behind Leeds at the minute as well. So it's not plain sailing, I think, for anybody down there, and it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens down there. But let's not. Actually, Rod says here, Rod makes a good point. Actually, Westwood dominated Everton's midfield, and that'll tell you something about it, considering they've got the likes of the Kura in there. They have, Dele Alli is on the bench for them, and I'm sure that's something that I don't know whether you're delighted he's on the bench for Everton or that he's down in Goodison Park and not at the Spurs Stadium. But he's there, and they've got some hardened internationals in that midfield, and that's really what's not ticking for them, because Andre Gomez, much not, his hair is beautiful. Sometimes his play hasn't been this season. Well, let's get on to the game at hand. I tried to put it off for long enough. We're 5 minutes and 6 minutes into the podcast, and I tried to put off talking about Villa Spurs, because reason being is that I just have no idea what way this game is going to go. Well, I do know what way the game is going to go at the weekend, but I have no idea what way Villa are going to play. I really don't. My mindset and confidence is taking a bit of a battering over the weekend. It doesn't usually happen. It happens for a short period of every season. Maybe one game I get down, and I think this is my game where I'm feeling like, just get it over and done with so that we can move on to the next game, because I just have zero confidence. And Paddy, I'll start with you first, but like, it's very, usually you're the one who can't sleep for days after a Villa loss. And now it's like as if I've just stepped into the mantle for you, because I know you felt a bit indifferent because you didn't get to watch it in real time.
Yeah, well, look, regardless of what happened in the past, it's a completely different mindset going into this weekend. Jeez. Look, I never feel confident playing Spurs. They've had the run of the green with us over the last
11-13.
Years.
They've won 11 of our last 13 Premier League games.
There's a couple of penalties through there, which probably weren't penalties. Remember Christian Benteke getting sent off for rubbing Brian, what's his name's beard? Can't think of his name. Ryan Mason, yeah, he rubbed his beard and got sent off for it. So, yeah, that side of me is just sinking in now, and I'm not expecting much out of the game. But it will be really interesting to see what way we line up, because that's gonna tell whether we take a spanking or not. Because I think the way Spurs lined up last weekend, they could very well give us a spanking.
Absolutely, that first half, and Matt, that first half, I suppose, against Newcastle, was really kind of a feeling out kind of experience, and then the second half, you guys went to town, and Newcastle, like it was a case where like you were wondering if Newcastle were going to concede once every 6 or 7 minutes at one stage there, and then they did plug the gap, but at that stage Spurs were 5-1 up, But without talking about the game, I suppose, firstly, take us back to earlier on in the season. Conte comes in, obviously you start off with Nuno, and then Conte comes in, and then like, where did it all go right? Usually we sit here and we talk, where did it all go wrong? And no one ever asks, where did it all go right for you guys? Was it really just as simple as a good January transfer window?
I wouldn't say it was purely down to that, but it played a massive part. And the weird thing is, there were so many players that we were linked to in January that just fell through, and Adama Traore would be the biggest one. And then, we were close to getting Luis Diaz in, and we're there with 2 days left in the window. We've no signings, and we managed to get those ones for Kulusevski and Bentancur over the line. Look, Neil, I know you were a massive fan of Bentancur before that. And I have to say you were absolutely spot on, because he is a sensational
That was my next question, Matt. It was, how right was I about Rodrigo Bentancur? Just to make me feel even worse.
You weren't right enough. He is absolutely incredible, and he's brought an air of calmness to our midfield. But look, early in the season, we all know how last summer went. Kane wanted to go. We were missing out on every manager we wanted, and we got a few deals over the line that haven't worked out as well as we wanted, with Brian Hill, Pierluigi Gallini, who looks like he's gone back to Atalanta. But Christian Romero he's a Rolls-Royce defender. And I've had a lot of debates with fans, especially, I don't know if you know Oscar from All These TV, but about Ben White and Christian Romero. I think Romero's better. Romero is absolutely incredible and has added such a balance and a calmness and the ability to distribute the ball to our defence. And when Conte came in, and I said it from minute one, and to be honest, I was saying it up until Crystal Palace beat Arsenal on Monday, that I didn't think we were getting top four. I thought we'd be there in the race, but I thought we just didn't have the depth in our squad, and we didn't have the balance across that team to really push on and be that team to finish in fourth, because Arsenal were so consistent. And I thought Man United under Ralph Rangnick would turn things around, but there's been a few nice bits that have come together. A bit of luck along the way with other teams not really performing well, but it's Antonio Conte and Fabio Paratici who've completely transformed this club in the space of 6 months with those signings and with the way Conte has built this team. And it's not been without its challenges. Conte had one game under his belt at the club, and Christian Romero got injured in international duty, and he was out for 2-3 months. Had, of course, Oliver Skipp, who's been out for a while. It looks like he could really be out for the season with the way his injury is going. And these just different challenges we've had, simply not having a capable right back when Conte came in, but he's managed to turn Matt Doherty now into Cafu, to be honest. He's 2 goals and 4 assists in his last 6 games.
Ireland? Where's number 10 for Ireland? Tells you all you need to know.
It does. He's been a revelation. Ben Davis and left centre back, unbelievable. It's just everything seems to be coming together, and it's Conte and Paratici who've managed to put the stamp of 2 men who have earned their reputation in football and are continuing to prove that. And look, I'm still not expecting us to get top 4, but the very fact that I have to clarify that, considering where we were when Conte came in November, I think just goes to show the miracles they've worked at this club.
Yeah, and it's like, as I say, he's got, yes, he's brought in Bentancur, he's brought in Kulusevski, but he's got the main, like, the core players that he has there were the same ones that Nuno had, and like I think for me anyway, the masterstrokes he's played has been like he's getting a tune out of Eric Dyer. Like we've spoke about this before. How many times has Eric Dyer been like 2 feet in a bin bag at this stage, and then all of a sudden he manages to crawl back out of it again? He's like the smell that won't die for Spurs. He always tends to come back and just gets into that squad, whether it's at right back, whether it's a defensive midfielder, whether he's just like managers come and go, and he is still there. And as you say, he's playing there at centre half for Spurs now as well under Antonio Conte, somebody who's famed for his defensive football. And if he sees something in him, it's little things like that. If you can get a tune out of players, and as you said there about Ben Davis playing left centre back as well, not really something that would have been tried an awful lot with him in the last maybe 4 or 5 years. I think he played a bit there for Swansea previously, but not something that he tried. But I think really for me watching Spurs, and I watched 2 games recently, and it does gall me that the Bentancur is playing really well for you, but he's also in there beside somebody that I really really rate as well, and that's Pierre-Emile Højbjerg as well. So the 2 of those guys they're really calm. They're big men, and they can distribute the ball as well. It just allows the 2 fullbacks to go forward and almost create 5 strikers when they need to at times. So it's a luxury that Spurs have. And to be honest with you, it's a massive area where we have zero options that we can drop a midfielder back in between our 2 centre halves and allow people to go forward. And that's what's really been catching us all season. Paddy, I'm going to ask you a question, and it's going to be pretty straightforward, and I don't think I'm going to like the answer, but are we going to be able to, like it seems to always be the case that when Harry Kane steps on the same field as Tyrone Mings, that it never goes right for Aston Villa. Now, I'm not saying that it's Mings' fault or anything like that, but I think that there's a couple of players in this league that Mings kind of tries to get involved with and tries to stamp his authority on, and it never fully really comes true, and it never fully really... we never go away afterwards going, finally, he's after getting one up on him. Are we going to look at another game where we're coming off the field and going, Jesus, Mings, you shouldn't have been touch tight on Kane at any stage, because just stand off him. You don't need to go man to man for him, because it hasn't worked the last 4 or 5 times, did you, Mark? Yeah. Or do you think maybe that it's a better matchup for Tyrone Mings? Finally, we might get a matchup out of it.
Well, I don't know. You mentioned these guys that seem to have the hex on him, and he's one of them. I went to the away fixture earlier in the season at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and again, Mings didn't have a good day. Albeit we only we got back into the game at 1-1 and then conceded an OG 3 minutes later, and Spurs just took the foot off the gas again. But they were playing with us that day. We couldn't lay a glove on them at all. We played for about 5 minutes, got a goal, and then they got a goal, but albeit an OG. Someone would have tapped it in behind, if memory serves me correct. Anyway, but Mings has those players, and you know what? You're not taking him out of the team either, because he's our captain, he's our leader, he's in there, he does a good job. I'd still have him first on the team sheet in those centre half position. I think the difference here is how we handle what's in front of him and who we play at 6, and also if we can hem them back by playing 2 up front. And I mean 2 up front, like 2. If we can get Ings back in, note that first of all, congratulations to him. His wife had a baby at the weekend, and that's why he was missing from our team. I didn't realize it at the time. So he'll be back. So I'd like to see him and Watkins up front, especially when we're up against a back 3. I think we need 2 strikers up there. But I think this game will be won and lost at defensive central midfield. It might be a bit too early for Nakamba, but you know what I'm going to say here now, don't you?
Callum Chambers needs to play.
Callum Chambers in there, give him a go.
I knew
it.
You're going to say it until you go blue in the face.
I'll be absolutely delighted if you put Callum Chambers in holding midfield, because I reckon that's 3 points for us if that happens.
Well, it's really 3 points for you anyway, I'd say, but at least we can see what this guy can do. You know, we know he had a really good season at Fulham playing in that position. I think, you know, we've got 8 games left or whatever it is. It's time to see what these guys can do. So put them in at this level and let them see. He's been really good for us. I don't know whether you're aware of that, Matt. He's been really good for us since he signed. So, and then
he's unbelievably, like our top scorer or something like that. And I'm not joking.
Crazy.
I think.
And for no reason he was taken out of the team. So, and then Conte had a stinker which led to a goal at the weekend. So I'm not saying replace him for Conte. I'm saying put him in there in the 6, see how he gets on, and that's if we don't have Nakamba back to full fitness, which I doubt very much.
Joe, I think you've hit the nail on the head there in terms of having a defensive midfielder to watch that space to patrol Kane, because the best example I can give of this is we've beaten Manchester City home and away this season, which is ridiculous. But when you played them at the Spurs Stadium on the first day of the season, they were tracking Kane. They had Diaz and Stones, and every time Kane was dropping deep for possession, they had one centre-back tracking him. But when they did that, Son was then able to spin in behind. And that was an easy ball for Kane to play through, and we caught them out time and time again with that. Yeah. And we played them a couple of weeks ago, and they didn't track him, so they kept their back line fairly secure and allowed Kane to get into that space himself. And with, I think it was Rodgers playing holding midfield that day, you'd expect him to maybe patrol that area a little bit better. But when your centre back set off and your defensive midfielder isn't doing that work when Harry Kane is around, having time with runners in front of him is just as dangerous as leaving that gap in your back line. So when Kane's in this form, I really don't think there's anyone who can't stop him, or any particular kind of style or tactic that you can employ to try and stop him. But I think your best option is to have someone sitting in that space in front of the defence, because if either centre-back is even a foot out of position, there Kane will pick out that pass and he'll hurt you.
And our centre-backs love to be out of position.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
Out of position at the moment. Well, I will say that when we do, and it's literally this simple, and we're going to be blue in the face from saying it, but when we do have a good performance from midfield, our centre backs do have good structure to them. But when we don't, they get dragged left, right, and centre. Everybody knows I'm hoping to see Luca Dean is back there. I think he will be back in there in that left back position, like it or not. With regards to why he went off the last day, I can empathise with it. And I'm not just because of my blinkered view. But I think we're going to need our back four. I think we need to get a draw out or something at the weekend. We've said it last day. We need to just stop the bleeding at the moment, and get something that we're not entitled to, essentially. And that's really the theme of my thought process carrying on from our review of the Spurs game. Like looking at the league table for yourselves, Matt, obviously you're occupying the lofty 4th position at the moment. When I suppose when I look at the like your goals for and your goals against, I suppose when you look at that as a barometer, like you guys have scored 52 goals, you've conceded 37. And then when I look at Villa's, we've scored 42, we've conceded 42. Like it isn't a million miles away from each other. I know it's 10 goals more that you guys have scored, but then you guys do have Harry Kane. But and Son as well in there. But like it's not a million miles away. And like the points differences, like when you look at it, the points differences just don't correlate. They really just don't correlate. Like 36 points for Aston Villa at the moment. We've been Jekyll and Hyde all season. And Spurs have just gone on a great run of form, and you're 18 points ahead of us at 54 points. It shows that, I suppose, realistically, when you've got key players in key areas, like the likes of Harry Kane and Son, having a partnership up there, like we've no partnership up top. We've no partnership up top at all. And we've no real partnerships in midfield either. We've no clearly defined roles in midfield, I think it's fair to say. And if you don't mind me saying, I'm jealous as fuck because you guys have changed manager mid-season and we've changed mid-season and we haven't gotten that stability that you guys were able to carry through from. Gosh, I can't even remember who's there before Nuno.
It was Jose and then Ryan Mason.
Jose, even coming from Jose to Nuno to Conte at the moment, like the stability of certain players in certain positions has stayed. Whereas we've gotten our stability of certain players in certain positions have stayed as well. But what we haven't got is we haven't got any partnerships over those years. And that's really what it's boiling down to. And people might be surprised to see how much Aston Villa spend outside of Aston Villa, that is, how much we spend this summer to try and get that right and rectify it, because we're 4 years in with a lot of these players playing together and we're no further down the line of any coherent partnerships than we were 4 years ago. Do you think that's been a big reason as to why you guys have been able to get it together so quickly under Conte, is that it has been the same pool of players more or less that he's been able to pick from, and they're players that have performed under previous managers as well?
Yeah, I think Conte nailed the process that he kind of undertook to try and get this team to a level of competitiveness that it's at now. And the main thing that's really allowed us to push on in the last couple of weeks is that link up between Son, Kane, and even Kulusevski kind of getting in there. But we've also had the same back three. And when looking at the start of the season under Nuno, we were playing a 4-3-3, which is possibly the worst formation you could play with the players that we have at our disposal. Conte then switched it into the 5-2-3, 5-4-1, whatever you want to call it. We've had 9 different centre-back partnerships or trios back there this season. I think it's the 5th highest in the Premier League. But the last 8 games has been Romero, Dyer and Davis. And I think with the way Conte did it when he first came in is he knew how leaky we were at the back. You know, the 3 games before he came in, we'd conceded 3 to Man United. Even before that, we conceded 3 to Palace, to Arsenal, to Chelsea. We were shipping goals for fun, as if it was nothing. And he came in, and the very first thing he did was he got that defence, the 5 at the back, started implementing those tactics. But from minute 1, he didn't go out to win games. He went out to not lose them. And when you have Kane and Son on the other end of the pitch, trying to not lose a game, more often than not, will get you 3 points. Because once you have that resilience, once you have that setup in place at the back to keep a clean sheet, you're bound to get something at the other end from those two producing that way. I remember our first game under Conte was at Goodison Park. We drew 0-0. We didn't have a shot on target. And it was one of my favourite games from us this season because it was such a shift from what we were used to. You know, we didn't have ball progression in the middle of the park. That didn't change. We really didn't offer anything going forward, but we were so resilient to the back that you could see even from minute 1 that progress that we had made. And Conte managed to get that defence in place. First 10, 11 games in the league, we didn't lose any. And I think then when he kind of started to allow us to be a bit more expansive when we were trying to catch teams on the counter-attack, where previously we've been slow in our build-up play. We were going for the jugular every time we got in possession. And I think that then committing the numbers forward and shifting that style of play, we then went on a bad run because we were getting caught out at the back. We ended up playing Chelsea 3 times in January, which wouldn't help anybody with the form they were on. But we had those silly defeats to Wolves and Southampton. But now as they're starting to get used to this new style of play, we're seeing that progression now in terms of the quality of the output. And we've won 5 and 6, which I think for Spurs fans is probably better than we'd expect because we've had quite a few cup defeats in the middle of that. So I think what we're remembering for the last couple of months is a lot worse than what has actually happened in the position we put ourselves in. But Conte has nailed everything. And look, I'm a fan of what Gerrard is doing at Aston Villa. I think he's doing a really good job there. I know the last couple of results haven't been too good, but you look like you're going somewhere now. And I think under Dean Smith, who I was also a massive fan of, I think he did great work at Villa. I think things have started to go a little stale there, but you could see when Gerrard came in, the impact that he had. And there's always going to be that honeymoon period kind of followed by a lull. But I think Gerrard will do really good things with Villa, and it's only the beginning of where this club can go. Because I'm a fan of Villa, I'm not going to lie. There's some really, really good players there, and I'd like to see you go on and be the kind of club that you have been in the past. I think Gerrard could play a big part in that.
No wonder you're a fan of Villa. We just said you've won 11 of the last 13 meetings against Aston Villa.
Yeah, maybe that plays a part.
If we won nearly every game as well. But you made some great points there, I suppose, about playing to the team's strength. And I think, and we spoke about Gerrard, you spoke about Gerrard there as well. And look, there is a faction of fan. And at times I've kind of questioned, I've wondered, are we actually putting our players in the best position to succeed at this moment in time? Playing with when we played with the 2 10s at the start and things were going right, and then that was found out. I don't know whether it was found out or whether it was just it just suited some games. Now we went back to playing with 2-10s, and we were on fire there at one stage. We were scoring 3 against Leeds, we scored 4 against Southampton, and we were like on the crest of a wave. And then things hit us again with a couple of injuries hit us, and Danny Ings wasn't in the team, and it's just we've not been able to go on that run. And I think that as you said there, Spurs are on 5 out of the last 6. And I think that, you get to a certain stage whereby the wave becomes, I'm not going to say unstoppable, but the wave of positivity will almost drag you over the line as well. And we've never gotten that run long enough to be able to get over the line with positivity, because if we've won 2 or 3 in a row, we've lost 5 in a row then directly afterwards. And it's been so helter-skelter. Paddy, I don't think any of us expected Leon Bailey, and now we know that Ings had a child, or his partner had a child at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yet he still wanted to play, but Bailey was kind of like the auxiliary striker that came in there. No one really expected that, and to be honest with you, I think deep down no one really expected Sanson to start either. Do you think Steven Gerrard reverts to type for this game, or do you think he experiments again? Do you think there's a possibility that he just experiments because there's nothing really to be lost from his point of view, considering he knows he ain't going to get sacked at the end of the year?
Well, look, I'm an advocate for mixing this up. I've said it in past episodes over the last couple of weeks. I wanted Sanson to start. I wanted him to get a run of games to see what he has. That was just my opinion. Has he earned a start? Yeah, well, obviously he has if Gerrard put him in there. So, look, I think this is Gerrard's most important team selection in a long time. The reason being, you mentioned there, they've won 5 out of their last 6. They've scored 21 goals. And you also mentioned the goal difference. This has only come into play in the last 6 games, that the goal difference has just gone through the roof. The one game they lost in that was a 3-2 game against Man U. So, you can hardly say that was a blip. Like that was a decent game as well. So there's a lot of goals. We just have to be careful of how we're going to stop those goals. And I think the midfield has to be spot on. And I just fear you're going to see our 2-8s sitting very deep. And it could be just one of those park the bus games for me. And that's what I'm worried about.
And that's what I was actually going to get to that in a moment. Like, if there was a game that out of nowhere we would have got points from last season, it could have been something like this. Like, you think back to Villa Arsenal last season, wasn't it? Watkins scored in the first 90 seconds, and we were backs to the wall. And I mean, we were so much into the wall that we came back. After the game, we had to rip plaster off the back of our jerseys. That's how much back to the wall we were at that stage. And sometimes last season, specifically in the early part, we were able to do it, and we looked really structured, and we looked really well. And we're going to have the same players, bar Jacob Ramsey, who is an upgrade on Ross Barkley, and we're going to have Luca Digne, who's an upgrade on Matt Targett. So realistically speaking, if we just park a bus of 7 players there and leave Coutinho to try and get some space and maybe try and draw the 2 boys out, and obviously play with 2 strikers and just hope for the best, because we're going to concede. In the 11 wins out of 13, Spurs have scored 2 or more goals in every single one of those games as well. So, like, if we think we're going to get a 0-0 draw, we probably aren't. So,
no. But I think it's probably the way it's going to end up. You mentioned upgrades. The key thing here is we beat Spurs with 2 games to go last season. But they've upgraded since then. They've not only upgraded the team that's on the pitch, they've upgraded the manager and got rid of Jose, and they've gone through Nuno, and now they're firing. They're absolutely firing. So it's for me, it'll be backs against the wall, and hopefully we'll hit them on the break. That is the only way I see us getting anything out of this.
Matt, we're spitballing here about that possibility of Spurs throwing in a Rick. And you'll be able to tell us better than anyone else, I suppose, because it just like that. We're kind of saying this hoping against all hope, and we're being honest. We're not just sugarcoating this because you're on the podcast. I think myself and Paddy will be talking in kind of hushed tones about. Listen, look, I don't think we're going to get anything out of this game at the weekend, regardless of whether you were here or not. But Spurs just don't look like they're a team that are going to give away a silly goal and then kind of, or maybe go 1-0 up and then capitulate and end up losing 2-1 against Aston Villa because of Conte. Am I right in saying that? Is like, if Nuno was still there, I think that we would feel a bit more confident to maybe scraping something here, or even if we went down 1-0, we think, right, we might still even be in with a chance here. But just because of Conte's, I suppose, experience in Italy, am I right in saying that like even you guys are kind of feeling that that's less likely now, no matter who we play against?
Absolutely. Conte has completely transformed the mentality of every single Spurs fan. And look, that's probably a weird thing to say to follow it up with. I wouldn't be surprised if he beat us, because Tottenham, we're in very good form. You know, like Paddy said, 21 goals in our last 6. After we lost to Southampton and Wolves, we had a negative goal difference back at the end of January, start of February. So it's kind of quickly how it's weird how quickly that has shifted. But if you want to beat Tottenham, there's a very specific way that you go about it. And the first one is park the bus. Since we lost Eriksen, or so since maybe the last 12, 18 months of Eriksen's time, we haven't had that kind of creative spark in the middle of the pitch that is able to unlock a defence when they're sat so far deep. I mean, you look at every single one of Harry Kane's assists for Tottenham when he's playing long balls, it's exposing a high line and we've pace running in. You know, as gifted a footballer as he is, as fantastic he is on the ball and with his passing, he doesn't really have that knack in being able to pick out, a one player in the middle of 4 defenders. And I think you mentioned with that Newcastle game on Sunday, it was a lot of in the first half was us trying to trying to figure them out. I do think that was it, but we also didn't have the quality to break them down when they were sat so deep. And I think if Aston Villa do that, that's half the battle for you. Exactly what I want is for you to come out and play attacking football and to try to catch us out. And I think that fear is there with every Tottenham fan still, that a defensive team will probably have a very good chance of getting at least a point off us. But I think with the quality that we have on the break and the sheer brilliance of some of our players at the moment, like Kulusevski, Kane, Son, Bentancur, Romero, even Ben Davies, the way he's been the last couple of weeks, I think our focus has kind of shifted, but the fear and the Spursiness is still very much a thing there. And ultimately with Tottenham in the time that I've been supporting them, which admittedly is a lot less time than many Spurs fans that could say this, but when we get into a position when success is right there for us, or it's within our grasp. I mean, at the moment, because we still have to play Arsenal, if we win every game the rest of the season, we get top 4. That's the point where we mess up. That is always the point where we'll go out and we'll drop silly points, we'll make silly mistakes. And I could give you an example from every single season where I've supported Tottenham. I mean, the biggest one is that Leicester, or that game at Stamford Bridge, the Leicester season. The year after, we were chasing Chelsea, we went to West Ham and lost a stupid game by a 1-0. So if there was a time where Spurs were going to lose this form, or a time where we were going to mess up, it would be Saturday against Aston Villa. And for you to catch us out, and I'm going to say this, I said it before we played Southampton with James Ward-Prowse, if you're going to break us down, if you're going to get a goal, it'll be Philip Coutinho in the half space on the right-hand side into Ollie Watkins at the back post. If you go with that, you will score. Christian Romero is not good in the air. As incredible as he is elsewhere, he's really, really poor. He won only 1 of 5 aerial battles in the game against Newcastle. And on the flip side, he pocketed St. Maximin, which is an incredible feat. Yeah,
but he's up against Chris Wood, I think, wasn't he, in that game as well? Who not many people did. Chris Wood play? Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he did, and he had a couple of chances as well. But as fearful as you are of your midfield, when we're lacking Oliver Skip, there's this lack of defensive awareness in there, and it's those half spaces, those pockets where we're always hurting. It was Ward-Prowse when we played Southampton. It was Ruben Neves when he played Wolves. And what tends to happen is those two players in there, Højbjerg and Bentancur, they're so focused on kind of pressing the defense when they're in possession that they leave those gaps and you get into that space. And then what happened time and time again was, let's say Coutinho gets it in that right pocket, you get Ben Davies is dragged out of position and he has to go and close down that space because you can't leave a player like Ward-Prowse or like Coutinho with that space, and the whole defense ends up shifting across. So you've Dyer across to the left, Romero into the middle, then you've Emerson Royale or Matt Doherty at the back post trying to defend against a striker like Ollie Watkins. That's only going to go in one way. And that is a fear that I can guarantee every Spurs fan has. And if you get a goal, if you get an early goal and you park the bus, we will struggle to break you down as we would against any team. So I'm not going to sit here and say we're absolutely going to beat you. I always fear playing Aston Villa for some reason with that record. I wouldn't know why I do, but there's points there for you. Just whether or not you'll approach the game in that manner. And I think my fear for you would be that Gerrard would try and play that expansive football and try and maybe prove a point. If you do that, we could score any number. But it's definitely not as clear cut as Spurs just going to get the 3 points, in my opinion.
You've answered actually a question I was going to ask you. Well, it was my next question for you was with regards to Højbjerg and Bentancur. Do you think that the Conte is trying to? I'm not going to say recreate the Souček and Rice, but I think it's the closest partnership within the Premier League that will beat the Souček and Rice in there. And you answered my question. You said that they probably aren't, because those two guys are absolute shields and then they move forward. But you were saying that the Bentancur and Højbjerg are more pressing in midfield and they press the defense in that aspect. And that's probably why they have the likes of Eric Dyer in there, because look, I know I started off and say in talking about Eric Dyer, but he can step out of defense as well. You know, he's used to playing with ball at his feet at defensive midfielder as well. So he can kind of play that bit far forward as well. It'll be interesting, and you've kind of hit the nail on the head with us as well. But Paddy, you'll agree with me that, you know, in the games that we've played turgid and really poorly in since the turn of the year, Coutinho hasn't been able to get in the ball. And in the games that we've played brilliantly in, you look at Southampton, you look at Leeds, Coutinho was just all over the place. He was brilliant. He was that 100 plus million pound player in those games. And you mentioned about if we can get him into those half spaces and get him space in there. I genuinely don't even know how we're going to do that. I don't know how we're going to do that, because I think that it depends very much on like sometimes our team don't even focus on getting him the ball anymore, which is really kind of worrying and really strange, specifically in the last 3 games, because it's a case of pass it to Philippe Coutinho as opposed to let's work the ball into an area where we can move Phil into where he's dangerous. And it just shows a kind of a lack of footballing intelligence from the rest of the team around him. And that's something I think I saw at the weekend, Paddy. Am I making sense, or am I kind of talking around in circles there?
Well, I think the difference in the games that you mentioned, we played a high line, our 2-8s got further forward, and as a result, there was plenty of space there for Coutinho. And above all else, there was 2 up top. So when you have 2 up top, there's a lot of people occupied. So there's nobody stepping out to pick up Coutinho. There's no extra man picking up Coutinho. So that's what we have to do. Unfortunately, we play a high line and our 2-8s bomb on against Spurs. We're going to ship 3 or 4 goals. And they've goals coming from everywhere. They scored 5 goals last week and 5 different goal scorers, and none of them are Harry Kane. It's crazy stuff, like absolutely crazy. So yeah, I have an irrational fear of Spurs. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's rational. After all the stats we've listed off, I think since the 90s they've kind of had one over on us. But that great day when Alan Wright scored that goal at White Hart Lane, it's still rising, long in the memory. But since then we just seem to roll over and have our bellies tickled by them, and it was the same. It was the same as at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium earlier in the season. They didn't even have to go to third gear. They just motored along, picked their chances when they got them. Stan had a quiet game, Kane had a quiet game, and they still went and beat us.
Yeah, and we actually came back from 1 down to draw it up, and then 4 minutes later, Matty Target puts it in the back of his net. You know, so yeah, that it was a frustrating one. And it was even at that stage, Paddy, where I was getting direct messages saying to get you on some sort of no-fly list or something, so you couldn't go to games because you had been at the Wolves game a couple of weeks previous to that. But it didn't work out
Wolves
anyway.
Was after that one.
Wolves was after it, was it? Yeah, I remember it was a fantastic day. You sent me a photograph in the stadium, and it was an absolute stadium. Looks great. I know some Spurs fans don't really like the new stadium, and maybe, you know, they're a bit more traditionalist, and the fact that it was built for a completely different reason, Matt, and you'll be able to talk to me on this one. But some of the photos you sent me, Paddy, were absolutely like it could have been it was just an absolute gorgeous day, but it looked smashing. It really did.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. I think it was the 2nd or 3rd of October, and it was the last of our summer's afternoon. I watched the game in short sleeves. It's an incredible stadium. The only one criticism I'll have, Matt, and I hope you don't take this personally, is the fans are just too quiet. Spurs fans, even historically, I've never been in an atmosphere with Spurs fans, and it's going to take a while for it to settle down. Look at him disappearing under the table.
We're here to make friends. We said friendly fire, Paddy. We said friendly fire, didn't we?
But a new stadium takes time to settle down. You know, we were sitting in the very last seat, and the Spurs fans were across the. I don't know what kind of a divide it was, kind of a mesh. And I was talking to the guy, and he said to me, I was sitting in the middle of all my friends behind the goal, having great fun every week, and now I sit here and it's no atmosphere. They scored, and you know when they score at Villa Park, we're still jumping around 5 minutes later because we just can't believe we scored. Spurs were just back to normal in 10 seconds. And I'm not criticising. It's going to take time for that atmosphere to be created in the stadium. But I think if it gets to that stage, it will be a cauldron of noise. I don't know whether the fan base. Well, there's a lot of young people there at matches as well. So I think as they start to find their voice, it will be a cauldron of noise. And I know they've experienced it at the American football. They experienced a tremor, didn't they, outside the stadium, or something was picked up outside the stadium during the American football. So there's great potential there. The stadium itself is absolutely fantastic. It's a glorious place to watch any kind of sport. And it's a joy to watch your point being filled from the bottom as well.
That's the best part, isn't it?
Wait a minute, how do you do the 2-part pour if you're going to fill it from the bottom, Paddy, if it's a pint of Guinness?
Well, they're no Guinness. I don't know. Definitely no Guinness.
If you're filled it from the bottom and they left a bit at the bottom that wasn't full, now that would impress me. And then it filled then from the bottom still. So, you know, if it just pushed everything up and then kept the buffers on top, I don't know what way it would work. You got some sort of an upside down pint. That would impress me. Let's look at a couple of comments because I've completely neglected our wonderful watchers and listeners today. Soupy Mark says, I'd like to see Chambers given a go there too, just to see what he can do in reference to the defensive midfielder situation. I think maybe his height in midfield would be a big plus for us, and maybe his mobility won't be completely and utterly shown up there as well. But you know, if he gets around the edge of the area and if he scores a goal like he did against I'm blanking. Help me out, Paddy. If he scores a goal like he did in the last goal he scored against Leeds, yeah, well then, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm absolutely all for it. Cloudy with a chance of UFO says he thinks the starting 11 should be try out Martinez, Cash, Mings, Dina, and Chambers as a back four. Sanson, Luis, and Nakamba if he's fit. Coutinho, Buendia, and Ings. Then up top. I'd be surprised if Nakamba was risked for this game. I think we might see him against Leicester though. But it's nice to see him come back. It's nice to see him get minutes during the week as well. And he nearly scored, which isn't something that you often see with Marvelous Nakamba. Where are we? There's a couple of people picked up on my Derek Iyer, which is great. I think someone mentioned there a moment ago, that I've just cursed us that Dyer is going to score now. We'd see.
Don't worry about
hopefully,
it.
Matt says don't worry about
it. The only it's outrageous to say this. The only chance Eric Dyer has of scoring is from a direct free kick, but that won't happen because Harry Kane, who is the worst free kick taker I have ever seen, insists on taking all the free kicks. So if we're attacking at any point, give us a free kick anywhere near the box because I can guarantee you Kane will put it in the wall or in the stands.
You need to watch out for our free kicks, though.
I was just about to say, you haven't seen Douglas Luiz. You haven't seen Douglas Luiz take a free kick.
Well, I look forward to it. But yeah.
And he's not that bad. He's not that good either. Kieran says if we go behind early, I fear we will just cave in. And you know what? That's a pretty valid fear because when we have gone behind in recent games, specifically to teams I think that we deep down don't think we can beat, it hasn't really happened for us. You know, look at Arsenal. Arsenal to me is one that smacks of it. We go 1-0 down against Arsenal, and we tried to catch them late in the game, but really up until the last 5-10 minutes, we didn't. It looked like we didn't even think we could get something back in the game, and that's a worry for me.
And just with what Kieran says there about going behind early, I think that's vital if we're to have any chance in this, is that we keep it tight early on. Because bear in mind, it's a 5:30 kickoff, which is traditionally a really good atmosphere at Villa Park. So if we can keep it tight, get the crowd behind us, then things might change in our favour. I'm still not holding out any hope. I'm clutching at straws with that one. But I think that might be a slight mitigating factor in this that might give us a little bit of hope. I love a 5:30 kickoff. I think it's fantastic at Villa Park. it really gets rocking. There's plenty of people out all day with a good few points on board, and it's noisy. So hopefully that will be the case on Saturday.
Cash versus Son, battle of the day. What do you think? I'll leave that up to the two of you from either side of the fence.
To be honest, I think there's a lot of good battles all over the pitch. Someone mentioned there as well, Digne against Kulusevski. I think will be a very interesting one. That midfield battle too. I think that it's set up very interestingly, even though, and I know you won't mind me saying this, but there is a gulping quality amongst a lot of the players out there. I think it is set up stylistically for a lot of players to have those interesting battles. Like I mentioned, even Watkins against Romero will be a fun one. But for Cash against Son, I'm backing Son every day of the week. And that when he's on form, he's one of the best in the world. He's joint second top scorer in the league this season. Had a bit of a dodgy period for the last couple of games, but him and Kane are firing now. So I think Son will probably get the better of Cash, but it'll be a fun watch for sure.
He doesn't have any international military service or anything like that he has to do maybe just over the weekend.
You know what?
Maybe he mightn't have to show up.
What's very interesting about that is he completed it yesterday. His last bit of community service yesterday. So
and there was me just frivolously throwing it out there. I didn't know
maybe he should just go celebrating the fact that he's finished his community service.
He'd celebrate with a hat trick.
Most fellas who come back from active duty with Ireland as well, they're going to beer for the week. So maybe he should just go on to beer for the week. That'd be great. He'll enjoy it. He'll enjoy himself. Be great.
I'll suggest it to him.
Do suggest it to him. Slide into these DMs. Tell him I said so. Right. I don't feel any better anyway, Matt. Thanks a million for making me not feel any better about the game at the weekend. But in seriousness, thanks a million for coming on. It's always great to chat. And as I say, as we're kind of coming to the end of the season, we're going to try and have a couple of more fan views on with regards to the teams, because as I say, it's interesting. Otherwise, you'll just have myself and Paddy going on. Paddy will be giving out about refs. I'll be giving out about midfield spacing and potentially rotations at left back, and you guys just. There's only so much of that you guys can listen to between now and the end of the season. But Matt, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight and popping on. If you want to tell people where they can find you, I know Matt doesn't just do Spurs stuff. From time to time, you'll see Pat will do. Or Pat, what am I doing? First, it was Derek Geyer. I'm getting all tongue-tied. Pat Hayes is that's a milkman. That's like I think there's a milkman at home called Pat Hayes or something like that. But Matt, where will people find you in case they want to check out your stuff?
Look, if you want to see a Spurs fan crying regularly, my YouTube channel is Matt Hayes Tottenham blog. I'm not doing too much on there at the moment, but if you want to see a Spurs fan crying through written form, you can follow me on Twitter at Matt Hayes THFC. And thanks a million for having me on. That's always a pleasure coming on here. And yourself, I'm not in the chat. I try to do in the comments as well. So everyone make sure to smash the subscribe button for this channel too.
Excellent.
Cheers, Matt.
Very much. Thank you. For everybody, the team sheet tantrum. We're going to be doing a takeover of the Villa View at the weekend as well. Look out for the socials as well. It may be running on both channels this time over the weekend. So keep an eye out. I will announce on Twitter because I don't know. Is it that fancy that I should announce it? Either way, I will announce it on Twitter, whether you like it or not. But we will be doing a takeover of the Villa View again at the weekend for the team sheet tantrum, and Paddy will be there with me this time over the weekend as well. So I hope to see all of you guys there. That will be on Saturday. Game is a 5:30 game, if I'm not mistaken, Paddy. 20 past 4, we will be going live with our team sheet tantrum. Our now world famous team sheet tantrum. I think we can say that, considering we have people who tune in from New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, Japan. We did it one day. We did a roll call in it one day, and there was like something like
Wexford.
14. Wexford, yeah, there's people from Wexford even. With 14 different exotic locations in there. So I think I'm going to call it our world famous team sheet tantrum. But we'd love to see you there, guys. Really, really appreciate everything you do for the channel. As always, as Matt said there, give this show a like, give it a thumbs up, and share it on social media if you can. It'll really do us a massive, massive favor. But once again, thanks to Matt, thanks to Paddy, thanks to myself, thanks to all of you guys for watching. We will be back on Saturday with Team Sheet Tantrum. And Matt, you can block your ears because next thing I'm going to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Come on, you Spurs.